Are you lost, confused about where to go, disappointed you're not further along? You know, it's interesting, and I've brought this up before. Anybody ever seen a Jeep Wrangler? Got a tire on the back. Some of it is just the spare tire. Some of it's got a cover on it. I've seen many times that cover say, not all those who wander are lost. Yet some of those who are wandering are lost. So what's the difference? Two people cruising around, one's like going crazy and so upset that they're not somewhere other than where they are, and the other's like, I'm right where I need to be. See, the thing is, at times we are frustrated because we want to get somewhere. We don't know where that somewhere is. And it's the same as having a starting place where you are, getting in your car and putting in no destination and then driving and being upset that you're not somewhere other than where you are, but you don't know where you want to go, so you can't get anywhere. You have to realize if there is no thing you're working towards, or if there is, but it is extremely, extremely vague. Now, here's the interesting thing. I like to get clarity. Now, when you don't have clarity, what I like to do is not be frustrated that I'm not somewhere other than where I should be, because the reality is if I don't know where I'm going, I'm right where I should be, because I can't even get there, because I don't know where there is. So how can I, if you're trying to do 50 things and you're wanting an answer to how do I get there, how can you get there if you don't pick where there is, right? If I'm saying I want to go to, if I'm in Florida, I want to go to California, yet I put in my GPS New York, and then I end up in New York City. I'm like, how the heck did I get to New York City? Well, that's actually where you drove to. You can't be frustrated. You put an address in, it's New York. So therefore, what I have learned that has helped me is that there's kind of stages to finding clarity. Sometimes you're in a stage you don't know, and we accept it. We surrender. I really don't know what I want right now. I really don't know what I want to do or where I want to go. And that's okay. Stay where you're at or go somewhere. Do something, right? There's options here that you can do, but don't be frustrated. The gap between where you are and where you think, and you might not know what that is, you should be. Sometimes it's financially. I don't know why I always use rhymes sometimes. Sometimes it's financially, right? You're making X and you're 27 years old and you've been made to believe by yourself, external, people, whomever, that at 27 years old, whatever you're making, you should be making more. You should have a different life. You should be further ahead. And then that gap between where you are and where you have created an expectation of where you believe you should be is what then creates an enormous amount, depending on how big that gap is and how difficult it may seem to achieve. It creates a lot of frustration. And it typically, in most people, does not create this fire and drive to move forward. It creates disappointment. And so what I've learned is we've got to recalibrate that, because you are where you are based on the decisions you made, based on what you knew was the best decision to make at the time you made a decision. But then once you make a decision, at times you realize that might not have been the greatest decision to make. But the beautiful thing is we get to make new decisions each and every single day. And so what I've learned to do, and then this is, again, there's two sides to this because I've seen this. Recently, I'm working with somebody who there was a level of frustration that they hadn't quit their job yet. Then they had written down and recorded and recited and listened to something that said they were going to quit their job at a specific, month and year in the future. Well, that time frame is still, when they started, it was 2.5, 3 years into the future. It's still another 1.5, 2 years into the future. And that's what they've been thinking about all day, every day, because they listen to it at least once a day. And then that comes up in that thing that they're listening to and reading. I will quit my job when, but then frustrated because it's not today, but you're programming your subconscious in your mind for that future date. So what are you doing every day that has you where you are because of what you believe? See, what I like to do is create a gap, yes, between not where you are and where you want to be, but what you want, but doing it to a place to where you can create belief. Because the problem is there's so many things out there. People are getting in challenges, And they keep getting beat down. They buy courses, they buy programs. These things promise certain results in certain periods of time, and the likelihood is high. Sometimes nobody achieves it, and other times there's a very, very small percentage of people who achieve it. And what happens with that is if you already don't have a really super positive outlook on life, and when things happen that you don't achieve in the time frame expected or whatever you thought was going to happen, if that doesn't continue to supercharge you, rather disappoint you, then those things are going to cause you a problem, because they might say 30 days and you could have accomplished it in 90, but because your expectation was 30, you didn't even get remotely close in 30, but others did, then potentially you cannot look at that through like, I can do it, but rather I suck. And then there's disappointment, there's discouragement. And each time that happens, then the more difficult it can be to get up and do it again, or do anything again. Just like I've tried a whole bunch of things. They didn't work. It's not for me. I'm not meant to do it. But the likelihood is something you tried, even as you listen to this today, there's something that you've done 3 years ago that could have been the perfect thing for you, that would light your soul on fire. But at the time you did it, with what you knew and who you were, it wasn't the right time, right? I may come to you, and if we're doing coaching, and say, hey, call this set of people. You're like, I already did it. I did that about 12 months ago. It didn't work. Okay. Are you not a different person with different knowledge and different experience now 12 months later than you were prior? Or are you the exact same person who's going to say the exact same thing and get the exact same outcome? My assertion that I see is, if you have any level of awareness, is that you are a different person with different knowledge, different experience, and you likely can talk to that person in a different way, which will get you a different outcome than you got the first time. And I can give you many examples. We'll go far longer than my 15 to 20 minutes. I want to keep these two right now about that. Good time to chime in. MindTuneupTimeLive.com. Those are my longer sessions, typically on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, that you can come check out and go to MindTuneupTimeLive.com, register for the Zooms. I do those complimentary every week. And so you can also receive some coaching on those sessions. So I usually go a lot more depth into topics. So if you hear something on one of these, join that and ask some questions, or submit questions in general, because those are things I'll talk about on there, and I'll bring up as future topics on these sessions. So the gap, what I like to do is actually be able take anything you want to accomplish, and effectively start to go do this with a friend. It can be really helpful. So tell them to ask you X questions. So you want to quit your job, let's just say, or you want to make $100,000 in business, or you want to design an app, or whatever that is. So take that. Let's say it's quit your job. Tell your friend, do you think you can quit your job in a week? Do you think you can quit your job in 3 months? Do you think you can quit your job in, a year? Do you think you can quit your job in 3 years? What they need to look for, what you need to think about and observe in your body, we're looking for gut. Every answer needs to be gut, meaning immediate. If you're thinking more than a few seconds about it, the probability is it's a no. Now that gap's going to get shorter until you go, yes. I don't know how long that might be. It might be 20 years for you on something. It might be 2 months, but you've been trying to do it in 2 days or 2 weeks, right? And so what happens is, what we want to get the brain to believe, for you to believe, is that yes, unequivocally, with absolute certainty, it can happen. Too many of us are going towards things we don't even believe is possible for us. Guess what? You're probably not going towards it. You're doing everything else but it, because you don't actually think it's possible. If you don't think something is possible, if you don't believe that you absolutely unequivocally can do it, then the probability is your belief says, I can't, I won't, it won't work out, it's going to fail. And you may do some things, but your bias will say, see, I told you so. You think you can do this in 30 days? Probably not. Well, you better do it in 30 days. Figure it out. You get this thing, and there's different ways to be coached, but I found that for myself, people shaming me, guilting me, forcing me, pushing me, pressuring me, especially the things I don't even really want. I always say to people, I don't care what you want, but I care what you want. I don't care what you do, but I care what you do. Sounds like the same thing. except that I have no ego attached to getting you to do things I want you to do. I want to find the resonance with your heart, with your soul, so that you will do what you want to do, that you can get to that place. But we first got to get to the thing, where do you want to go? So you can put a destination in your GPS and you start working towards it with expectations in your mind that don't have you constantly disappointed and discouraged. And what I've found is create a gap that you can create absolute certainty with. Usually when I do that with money and somebody's making $25,000 a year, I say, do you think in the next 12 months that you can make $100,000? And they might go, possible. No, push it off. Do you think, now there's another thing to that when you get more advanced, but okay. Do you think you could do that in 2 years? Probably. Do you think you can do that 3 years? Oh, absolutely. Right. That's what we want. We want the, oh, absolutely. Right. We want the, are you kidding me? Right. That's what you want. Does it mean you can't do it quicker, sooner, faster? But now your brain at least said it's possible. I could do that. I believe I can do that. Now you can move forward and you can start to see the M&Ms start flowing in, the magic and miracles. Because once you know a version of where you're going or what you're working towards, you're going to get there. Now, how long it takes, a lot of variables in place there. Needing to know every single detail of also how it will happen will likely, mostly, foremost, discourage people because they can't figure out. And then when you try to have this perfect plan written down, step by step, day by day, week by week, inch by inch, second by second of what you're going to do, who you're going to call, and what you need to say, will also be demotivating. Just know where you want to go with some type of clarity. And if you don't, then start moving forward, but don't just be disappointed because you're not where you think you should be, but you don't even know where you want to be. But you start doing things and you start gaining some more clarity and that, and then it gets clear. And then finally you can put an address in your GPS, but you get to decide, do you want, once you know that, to keep taking detours, or do you want to go more or less straight there? Because anybody who's taking a road trip will know if it's going to take 20 hours straight through, you're going to stop, sightsee, detours, do this, do that. It's going to take you 40 hours. Disappointed because someone told you you could do it in 20, but the person who does it in 20 drives straight through, and you chose to go enjoy the journey, enjoy the ride, see other things, see other sights, and make stops along the way. Neither is right, neither is wrong. It's all about perspective and choosing what is right for you. Rock and roll, my friends. Michael Gebben, Mind Mechanic, tuning up hearts and minds one at a time so your ideas don't die and your hearts, heads, and hard drives. Excited to be here. Excited to be that catalyst. It only takes one thing said one time in one way that can set somebody off, set them in motion. Let me be that for you. Rock and roll. Talk soon.